This just developed. Federal agents have executed a massive, coordinated multi-state takedown, launching synchronized raids on 13 separate locations across Texas and Florida. We are tracking breaking developments in the explosive federal case surrounding the Kingdom of God Global Church Network, widely known as Living Light Cathedral. Federal law enforcement agencies, led by the FBI and the DEA, are on the scene right now at the organization's sprawling suburban Houston headquarters and multiple luxury estates. Millions of dollars in assets, cash stacks, and encrypted servers have just been confiscated. Investigators have arrested 34 individuals in a sweeping mega-fraud bust that has sent shockwaves through the community. A headline figure driving this massive federal crackdown? A staggering $900 million. That is nearly $1 billion in suspected dirty money moving through one of the largest, most trusted religious nonprofit organizations in the southwestern United States. For nearly a decade, millions of faithful followers gave their hard-earned money, believing they were funding international orphanages, building medical clinics, and saving lives across 41 countries. But tonight, federal court documents paint a deeply alarming, dark reality. Federal prosecutors allege that this massive network of global charity was nothing more than an elaborate, highly sophisticated front. This was not a minor bookkeeping error. It was a structural, multi-layered criminal enterprise operating right under the noses of the public. Tonight, two prominent church leaders are sitting in federal custody, facing severe criminal charges. The central target of this staggering investigation is the powerful chief executive officer and senior pastor who built this empire over 26 years alongside a brilliant, rogue financial architect who spent 15 years working on the federal side of tax compliance before allegedly switching teams to engineer this massive underground pipeline. How did an empire with 9 massive campuses and 38,000 weekly attendees hide a near-$1 billion scheme for 9 years? How did hundreds of fake humanitarian shipments go completely unnoticed? In this investigative expose, you are going to see exactly how federal cyber analysts tracked a trail of shell companies across 17 different offshore tax havens, how tactical units breached fortified residential estates to seize hidden foreign passports, and the shocking discovery uncovered by the DEA inside a massive commercial logistics warehouse that blew this case wide open. The scale of the deception is unprecedented, transforming a beacon of faith into the ultimate corporate shield. Stay right here, because we are breaking down the exclusive timeline, the exact mechanics of the financial deception, and the massive federal dragnet that brought it all down. To understand how a nearly $1 billion criminal operation could hide inside a house of worship, you have to look at the powerful central figure who controlled the empire, and the terrifyingly brilliant financial architect who built its invisible pipes. At the absolute apex of this network sits one man, Pastor Vincent Holloway. At 62 years old, Holloway was a towering, celebrated figure in the religious broadcasting community. He founded Living Light Cathedral in 1998 with just 230 members, meticulously building it over 26 years into a juggernaut non-denominational megachurch network. He was a regular guest on national morning television, the author of 7 books, including 3 New York Times bestsellers, and maintained a publicly reported net worth in the $40 million range. His voice reached millions of households every single week. But behind this pristine public image of faith and global humanitarian outreach lay a calculated corporate hierarchy. Living Light was an absolute financial powerhouse, pulling in an average annual revenue of $164 million from tithes, massive conferences, global broadcasting rights, and books sales. The church operated its own high-tech television production studios, its own publishing imprint, and an extensive private school network. But its most heavily promoted division was Living Light Global Outreach, an international mission arm claiming to run vital humanitarian projects in 41 countries. On paper, it was a flawless system of corporate generosity. In reality, it was a bulletproof shield for mega fraud. The multi-million-dollar scheme began to unravel at exactly 3:07 a.m. inside the quiet financial administration wing of the church's suburban Houston headquarters. A junior staff accountant named Rebecca Tate was running a late-night reconciliation pass on the overseas mission disbursement reports when she spotted a glaring anomaly. A wire transfer dated 4 months prior showed a $640,000 disbursement to a mission orphanage project deep in the Guatemalan highlands. The field report looked perfectly legitimate on its surface. It detailed the construction of a new children's wing, the urgent purchase of medical supplies, the exact salaries of 14 local staff members, and it even included signed field documents and a touching thank you letter from a regional coordinator. But Rebecca noticed one fatal detail. The orphanage's listed address did not exist on any internationally recognized humanitarian registry, the Regional Child Welfare Database, or the U.S. State Department's International Charitable Records. When she pulled up the field photographs on a high-definition monitor and extracted the digital metadata, the trap snapped shut. The climate and architecture in the photos didn't match Guatemala. The medical crate labels were in a completely unrelated foreign language, and all the images had been uploaded from a single IP address linked to a commercial Houston property just 6 miles from her desk. Most shocking of all, the $640,000 hadn't gone to Central America. It had been wired directly to a private, corporate LLC account at a secretive bank in Belize by 5:30 a.m. Rebecca had uncovered 11 identical fraudulent reports spanning 3 years, totaling $9.2 million. Following an anonymous tip to the Texas Attorney General, the FBI's Houston field office took over, unleashing forensic accountants who ran a full structural analysis on the church's IRS Form 990 filings dating back 12 years. What they found was a staggering automated pattern of deception. Out of 367 documented international mission projects reported over a 6-year window, 284 were completely fictional. There were no orphanages, no clinics, and no staff. Yet, the combined disbursement value routed to these 284 ghost projects reached a monumental $687 million. When investigators expanded the scope to look at domestic ministry partnerships, fake conference production fees, and broadcasting infrastructure contracts with phantom vendors, the total flagged fraud climbed to $900 million. Every single illegal transaction carried the exact same authorization signature code in the system, Exec 001. That override code belonged exclusively to Pastor Vincent Holloway, but Holloway didn't build this international labyrinth alone. To construct a laundering network capable of moving nearly $1 billion past federal watchdogs, he hired the ultimate inside specialist. At 2:31 p.m., during the investigation, cyber analysts identified the true financial architect of the network, a 58-year-old licensed CPA named Marcus Renfield. Renfield was no ordinary accountant. He was a former senior auditor for the Internal Revenue Service's International Tax Compliance Division, and before that, a financial intelligence analyst with FinCEN, the Department of the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Renfield had spent 15 years on the federal side of law enforcement, literally writing the internal IRS manuals on how to spot offshore, religious nonprofit laundering. He had trained the very analysts who were now tracking him. 11 months after Renfield retired from federal service, the church's first offshore shell account was opened. Known deep inside the encrypted network archives simply as the Steward, Renfield established private corporate entities with zero public disclosure requirements across 17 notorious tax havens, including Panama, the Cayman Islands, the Cook Islands, Cyprus, and the British Virgin Islands. Week after week, hundreds of millions of dollars donated by unsuspecting working-class families were systematically stripped out of the church's domestic accounts, routed through Renfield's offshore shell structures, and wiped clean from the books, all while the congregations watched staged slideshows of fake missions. Federal investigators knew they were dealing with an elite adversary. Because Marcus Renfield was a former federal financial intelligence operative who literally trained government analysts, standard investigative methods would not be enough. Federal authorities had to build an airtight case completely in the shadows. According to unsealed court documents and federal sources, investigators launched a multi-layered counterintelligence operation that quietly ran for months. Forensic accountants spent weeks mapping out the intricate web of transaction patterns across 17 different countries, tracing the digital signatures of the 284 fabricated mission projects. Cyber units targeted the encrypted communication channels used by Renfield and Holloway, slowly intercepting and reconstructing the data streams passing between the church's administration wing and offshore banks in Belize and Panama. Piece by piece, the feds intercepted operational logs, tracking the exact moments Holloway used his executive override designation code, Exec 001, to greenlight multi-million-dollar transfers to ghost vendors and phantom international outreach initiatives. The breakthrough came when analysts bypassed a highly secure network archive, gaining access to a massive trove of hidden communications. The federal paper trail was undeniable, revealing a massive systematic diversion of charitable donations. By the time a federal judge in the Southern District of Texas signed off on simultaneous search and arrest warrants, the trap was completely set. At exactly 4:18 p.m., the judge authorized warrants for 11 targeted locations across Texas and 2 additional compounds in Florida. At 4:52 p.m., the definitive order went out to field teams across the region. Execute. What followed was a highly synchronized tactical strike designed to prevent the destruction of evidence. At Location 1, the massive main campus of Living Light Cathedral in Houston, federal agents entered the administrative wing under a federal warrant. The church's campus security team stood down and cooperated completely as agents moved swiftly through the executive suites. While Pastor Vincent Holloway was not on site, his personal office proved to be a goldmine of evidence. Federal teams recovered 3 specialized laptops, 2 high-capacity external hard drives, and a fireproof document safe packed with personal banking records. Inside a locked side cabinet, agents breached the doors to discover $290,000 in cold, hard cash neatly banded in official U.S. currency wrappers. Simultaneously, tactical units converged on Location 2, Vincent Holloway's private estate in Tomball, Texas. Court documents describe the property as a massive, ultra-luxury 22,000 square foot compound sitting behind secured gates on a 14-acre estate. Holloway was inside the residence with 2 personal staff members when federal vehicles flooded the driveway. He met agents at the front door, offering no physical resistance, but immediately demanding his attorney within 90 seconds of the breach. The subsequent search of the mega mansion uncovered an astonishing hoard of hidden wealth. Agents seized 4 additional burner phones, a dedicated home office server, and 2 heavy floor safes containing approximately $640,000 in cash and physical silver bullion. The most damning discovery came inside a private library room, where agents located a concealed floor compartment. Inside that hidden space lay 4 foreign passports, 3 of them issued under entirely different aliases, and extensive offshore banking documentation directly tying the senior pastor to active hidden accounts across 8 foreign jurisdictions. 6 miles away, at Location 3, federal agents raided Marcus Renfield's wealth management office in Houston. Renfield was inside his executive office when the team breached the perimeter. Investigators found a commercial document shredder actively running, chewing through critical financial records. In a back office hidden entirely behind a custom built-in cabinet, cyber units discovered a black rack-mounted server that was running, fully active, and transmitting data overseas. Federal cyber experts moved in immediately to halt the transmission and began an emergency extraction of the raw data. But the most unexpected and alarming discovery of the entire afternoon occurred at Location 4, the Living Light Global Outreach Logistics Warehouse in Pasadena, Texas. DEA agents led the tactical entry into this massive commercial facility. On paper, the warehouse was designated solely for storing humanitarian aid materials, Bibles, and religious books packaged for international mission shipments. But when DEA teams breached a highly secured interior section, labeled as climate-controlled storage, they found something completely unrelated to charity. It was a highly sophisticated, temperature-managed pharmaceutical staging area. The shelves were loaded with bulk quantities of controlled substance prescription medications, packaged for outbound international shipment. DEA forensic teams immediately began securing the unauthorized inventory, estimating the total wholesale quantity at a staggering 4.2 million prescription doses. This was no longer just a financial fraud case. It was a major pharmaceutical diversion pipeline. The dragnet continued to hammer the network. At Location 5, Renfield's private residence in the wealthy River Oaks neighborhood of Houston, agents discovered a hidden home office server concealed behind a false wall in his custom wine cellar. This backup drive contained data spanning the full 9-year history of the entire operation. Agents also seized a wall safe containing $380,000 in cash and 3 additional foreign passports. Across Locations 6 through 13, including a luxury waterfront estate in Galveston, an isolated island compound in the Florida Keys, and campus financial offices in Dallas and Tulsa, the feds systematically locked down the empire. They seized assets, computers, and arrested senior financial executives, who had been routing the fraudulent paperwork beneath Holloway's signature. By 10:14 p.m. that evening, federal analysts finished their first full pass of the data recovered from Renfield's hidden server. The master file bore a specific title inside the encrypted archive, the Vineyard file. It was a deliberate biblical reference chosen to mask the ultimate corporate betrayal. The archive contained the entire operational blueprint of the $900 million conspiracy, including the full corporate ownership chains of every shell company, the real estate charts, and a complete 9-year timeline of every single disbursement authorization Pastor Vincent Holloway had ever signed. Renfield had built this archive as a blackmail insurance policy to protect himself if Holloway ever tried to double-cross him. Instead, it became the ultimate roadmap for federal prosecutors. By 11:30 p.m. on that fateful night of synchronized raids, the full hammer of federal justice had dropped. A total of 34 individuals were in federal custody, safely locked behind bars as prosecutors prepared an avalanche of criminal charges. Instantly, the DEA suspended the registrations of every single pharmaceutical wholesaler tied to the network, completely freezing the massive illegal medication pipeline. But as federal investigators painstakingly combed through the mountain of evidence seized from the hidden servers of the Vineyard file, the detail that truly haunted them wasn't the sheer scale of the $900 million. It was the thousands of staged photographs. For 9 long years, the 284 fabricated international mission projects had been systematically documented with elaborate, completely fabricated visual evidence to keep the cash flowing. There were beautiful photographs of smiling children in classrooms that did not exist. There were staged images of medical clinics that were never built, and complex well drilling projects in remote villages that had never seen a single representative from the church. Analysts discovered that a massive portion of these heart-wrenching photographs had been meticulously shot inside a single commercial warehouse right in Houston, using rotating sets of donated clothing, strategic props, and paid local models. In a final, cynical twist, investigators realized the exact same hired model appeared in 17 completely different international mission reports across 4 different countries. The human cost of this mega fraud bust is truly monumental. For nearly a decade, the massive, loyal congregations of Living Light Cathedral gave of themselves selflessly. Sunday after Sunday, massive conference after massive conference, television broadcast after television broadcast, thousands of working-class families set aside chunks of their hard-earned income. They sacrificed to support what they trusted was a life-saving global ministry. They believed their dollars were feeding orphans and healing the sick. Instead, those donations were weaponized to fund a dark, multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. The money built ultra-luxury private estates, paid for sleek private jets, underwrote secretive offshore wealth accounts in 17 tax havens, and backed a massive pharmaceutical diversion ring, moving millions of prescription doses directly into illegal domestic distribution pipelines. The orphanages were ghosts, the clinics were illusions, the charity was a corporate lie. 3 days after the earth-shattering raids, Rebecca Tate, the junior staff accountant whose sharp eyes and refusal to back down blew the whistle on the entire scheme, returned to the empty church administrative wing under strict federal protection. Investigators revealed that the church's internal systems had been deliberately configured to hide these transfers, and Rebecca's own supervisor had explicit instructions to blindly clear any overseas report as long as the paperwork looked complete on its face. Rebecca read those compliance instructions, recognized the deception, and bravely chose to ignore them. Her single decision to dig deeper pulled back the curtain on one of the most sophisticated, devastating financial scams ever executed through a nonprofit organization in American history. Now, Pastor Vincent Holloway and Marcus Renfield await their day in federal court, facing decades in prison. The staggering fallout from this case is forcing a massive reckoning across the entire nonprofit sector. If a coordinated criminal network this massive could hide in plain sight for 9 years, laundering nearly $1 billion through fake humanitarian aid and secret offshore accounts, it raises a chilling, urgent question for every donor in America. How many other photographs are being meticulously staged tonight inside dark warehouses that no auditor has flagged yet? If you believe corruption like this must be exposed, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and comment